Hello and welcome to the What the What podcast. It's the podcast where we tell you what's nerdy, what's popping with culture, what's giving us all the nostalgic feels, and what's there to geek out about, past, present, and future. It's all the what's in one place. There's Jedi Master Eric Creech, we have Padawan learner Kyle Whitley, and I'm Sith Lord Ashby Brame.
So, do y'all like how we kind of, how I kind of position each of us?
How you?
I'll take that.
There's a theme. I'm Iron Man. I'm a Sith Lord.
You're
I'm
a Slytherin.
Slytherin.
I didn't pick Slytherin
You chose
though.
Slytherin.
You chose Slytherin.
You proudly carry
Look,
on.
we're not evil. We're just misunderstood, okay?
Is that your take on the Sith?
That too, yes. Sith,
We're not
Slytherin.
evil. We're just misunderstood.
Look, just because I'm driven doesn't make me a bad person.
Just because I want to, seek a spot in politics and take over the galaxy doesn't mean I'm evil.
No.
I want a better world. I'm like Thanos. What's your position on Thanos? No, actually, save it. We'll get to the Infinity War next year.
Okay.
You got a year to think about it.
I don't need a year to think about it.
Oh, you know.
Oh, I know.
Oh, Thanos.
Oh, no.
He was in the right.
You've got a year.
I mean,
though. It could
he had a point, is all I'm saying. Loki also has a point.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Now we go back to that same conversation I had with the high guy who said
Oh, boy.
Hitler really wasn't that bad. He just needed a dog.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying, though. Like, if he had been allowed to pursue his art, like, maybe
he just needed a friend.
would have been an okay guy. Look, I'm not an apologist. I'm just saying that, like, it's sort of the
boy.
butterfly effect situation. Like,
There's a movie I didn't watch.
you
never
spilled
seen
tea.
that?
No, I heard it was terrible.
It was terrible. I didn't watch it.
I loved it as growing up.
I mean,
I saw
Ashton
it
Kutcher's not a great actor. I mean, so.
I saw it a long time after it came
Hold
out.
up.
Oh boy.
Wait a second.
I just hit a nerve.
Swerve, skirt.
Side road.
Record scratch. I'm sorry. Ashton Kutcher is actually a really good actor and an amazing person and super smart and doing everything he can to lessen child trafficking in this world
Have
through
you seen
technology.
the Hot
Fair.
Wing Challenge?
Yeah.
If not, you should.
Time out. So you're probably wondering why I'm in this situation.
Look, just because he plays
Time
stupid
in.
characters doesn't mean he's a stupid person.
I never said he was stupid.
Go
So
watch.
this week we're talking about Star Wars.
Go watch Hot Ones, where they eat the hot wings and get interviewed while they do it.
Not
Is he the
Dude, Where's
host?
My Car?
No, but
Oh.
he was on there, and they have super intelligent conversations with him. But at the end, they have him explaining some big theory as he's eating the hottest wing of the night. So he's burning up, having to almost go throw up, but also explaining science to you.
Wow.
So it's worth looking at.
Okay, well, we'll do a deep dive on Ashton Kutcher at some point.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Whether you think you're some kind of Jedi waving your hand around like that, or maybe you're just a junk trader trying to make an honest living off your gambling problem, please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. And, of course, rate and review us 5 stars only. Please also follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at What Media.
All one word.
Oh, man.
Oh, you missed it.
Beat me.
And find us on Twitter at WTW_media. Please share with your friends if you enjoyed today's episode or one of the 56 other What the What episodes that we have available in the archives. Last week on this podcast, we ran the Infinity Gauntlet for the 7th time and discussed Iron Man 3. And on today's episode, we are taking a deep dive into 1999's Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Here is your spoiler warning for today's episode. While this movie is our primary focus, we may be discussing any and all things related to Star Wars, including the Skywalker saga, spin-off films such as Rogue One and Solo, or Star Wars television properties such as The Mandalorian, The Clone Wars, and Rebels, taking the entire saga into account. If you aren't sure about the difference between a Sith Master and a Sith Apprentice, maybe check out this movie first before you roll up to the Jedi Temple. So, with that said, Kyle, take it away.
Why do I get the feeling we've picked up another pathetic life form?
Oh boy, that's a tough look for my guy Hunter.
To be fair,
Tough look.
To be fair, Hunter, Eric wrote this. All hate mail.
Yeah,
Goes
all
to
hate mail should go to
ericomac15
Eric
@yahoo.com.
Creech. Yeah.
I believe that's his email address.
I hope it's not.
If not, we'll tell you his phone number. Call him. Keep him
man.
up at night.
He has it.
This is a place to offer up a brief refresher on what actually happened in Star Wars Episode 1. Today, Ashby will be reading a synopsis prepared by a good friend of the show and huge fan of this film, Hunter Batten.
Huge fan. He loves this film. Other than Episode 9, Rise of Skywalker, this is his favorite film. By far. Maybe Attack of the Clones might be a little better. Maybe.
I mean, honestly, nothing can really overcome his love for The Rise of Skywalker.
I mean, nothing at all.
He loves it.
Yeah,
so much.
He stands so hard for that movie.
He stands it
Yes.
so hard, honestly. Okay, so I'm going to be reading this prepared summary from Hunter Batten. It's going to take a little bit longer than usual. I'm going to slow down to give it the gravitas it deserves. Oh, what did he say?
I'd like to formally lodge a complaint.
Complaint already.
agbraim@gmail.com.
You guys are the worst. Oh, man. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Oh, I'm so nervous. Oh, God.
He's just going to, all the hate. Hunter, we do appreciate you doing this for us, buddy. We really do appreciate
I'm
it.
so nervous. Oh, my gosh. He scares me. I'm terrified of him. Honestly, always have been.
That's fair.
Okay.
He said stop. Do not stop. I'm sure he's like catching up to where, because there's
Right.
a delay here, obviously.
Right.
But
Okay.
oh, Hunter. Hunter,
Here we go. Here we go. Okay. Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, arrived in theaters on May 19th, 1999. A very excited 13-year-old boy sat down to watch the first new Star Wars movie in his lifetime. The theater darkens. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, John Williams' fanfare plays. The crawl starts. The crowd cheers. And we finally learn where the whole saga begins. The small, mid-rim planet of Naboo is being bullied by the Amazon of the Galactic Republic, also known as the Trade Federation.
Trade laws! Woohoo!
While the politicians endlessly debate, a pair of Jedi Knights are dispatched to settle the trade dispute with Newt Gunray.
Yes, that's his name.
Cool. Viceroy of the Trade Federation. Jedi Master Qui-gon Jinn, played by Liam Neeson, and his Padawan Obi-Wan Kenobi, played by Ewan McGregor, are escorted by a silver protocol droid to the Viceroy's multiple-purpose conference room / gas chamber. Darth Sidious dials in on a Zoom call to tell the nervous Viceroy to kill the Jedi and begin the invasion of Naboo. The Jedi's transport ship is blown up while waiting in the hangar, and poisonous gas fills the conference room. Before the 6-minute mark of Episode 1, we get a practical explosion and laser swords. Take that, haters. Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan slaughter a handful of droids and stow away on separate transport ships headed for the surface of Naboo. Upon landing, Qui-Gon Jinn encounters a native humanoid Gungan named Jar Jar Binks, saving him from being run over by a tank. Obi-Wan catches up to the pair, and they decide to head to Ota Gunga, the Gungan's capital city, which is underwater. The Jedi just happen to have their inhalers and some preposterous robes to try to swim in. No again, Jar Jar, you sit in big doo-doo this time. Not exactly a warm welcome. The Gungan leader, Boss Nass?
Yes.
Nas,
Nas.
the rapper.
Like Nas the rapper,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, he was
Obviously.
down
I'm
there.
Okay.
so sick of love. Oh, that wasn't Nas.
That's not. That was Neo.
That was Neo. Never mind. I'm getting my.
I don't even know what Nas. Anyway.
Get my late 90s music mixed up.
He gives the trio a transport submarine to navigate through the planet core. No word on how they plan to return the vessel.
Yeah.
The group is saved by one fish getting eaten by a bigger fish 2 different times.
It happens.
Wow.
That's life.
The
By
plot,
the way, have you-
plot thickens.
Yes, the plot thickens. Yes, that's where we're going. Have you ever tried to swim in robes before? I'm imagining. I've never tried it.
No.
It might be super easy.
The more I'm hearing, I feel like Batman's a Jedi. I mean, multiple times he's underwater. Guess what? He's got a breathing apparatus.
Yeah,
He
but where
swims
was
in
the
a cake.
breathing apparatus when they were in the gas chamber is what I want. Anyway, not the point. Back on land, the throne room is invaded by droids, and Queen Amidala is captured. The Jedi and Jar Jar are able to help free the queen, and the party flies away in a very chrome J-Type 327 Nubian Royal Starship. While flying through the blockade, the ship comes under heavy fire. Most of the damage is to the droids, as they are picked off one by one. The last droid standing is R2-D2, and it fixes the ship so that they can escape by the hyperdrive, but the hyperdrive is too heavily damaged to go too far. The ship heads to Tatooine, a desert planet on the galaxy's outer rim.
Never heard of it.
And they park the car in the furthest spot away from the store that they can find to avoid getting the doors dinged by other inconsiderate drivers. Qui-Gon, Padme, and Jar Jar make their way into town. Jar Jar steps in poop, which is hilarious, of course. Love a good poop joke. Upon entering the almost certainly problematic Watto's junkyard, Padme meets a slave boy named Anakin. Padme, who is actually Queen Amidala, gasp, is
Hey,
apparently...
spoiler. Oh, wait, we already had one of those.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
is apparently 14, and Anakin is 9. I don't know why I felt the need to look that up, but I digress. Qui-Gon tries a Jedi mind trick on Watto, but it doesn't work. No money, no parts, no deal, says Watto, and the group is forced to leave. Jar Jar decides to help himself to some street food, and almost gets disemboweled by a dung named Cibola. Luckily, Anakin shows up to hit him with some pod racing trash talk, and the now foursome take shelter from a sandstorm in Anakin's mother's slave quarters.
As we know, pod racing trash talk conquers everything.
That's right. We then meet... Shmi.
Shmi.
Think of Captain Hook's right hand.
Right. I don't like that. Okay. There's
a British guy that has a car channel.
Shmi
It's huge.
Skywalker
Shmi.
and Naked C3PO, who was built by little Annie. They all sit down for dinner and have a light conversation about slavery and pod racing, while Jar Jar rudely tongues fruit from a bowl on the table.
As one does.
After dinner, Shmi tells Qui-Gon that Anakin was an immaculate conception, which has absolutely no hidden meaning or interpretations whatsoever.
None.
Qui-Gon takes a blood sample to check for midichlorians, effectively ruining the magical properties of the Force. Yes. Deep exhale. Darth Sidious's apprentice, Darth Maul, arrives on Tatooine attempting to track down the Jedi. He's busy sending out probe droids while Qui-Gon is cheating at dice and betting on pod races with Watto. Qui-Gon will enter Anakin's pod in the Boon to Eve race.
Yes.
And if he
the
wins...
great pod racing race of Tatooine.
Right, obviously, it's the best of all the races.
Yeah, we need to have Boon to
We
Eve.
really need to bring Boon to Eve back.
You lick fruit off the table.
Yes.
And if he wins, the Nuvians get a new hyperdrive. Watto gets the winnings, and the kid will be freed. The pod race is awesome. There's nothing more that needs to be said. Everyone's on their starting marks. The crowd is excited, and apparently no one notices Cibola sabotaging Anakin's pod. The race begins, and Annie's pod stalls. Watto and Weasel have a big laugh. He finally takes off, and the next 10 minutes are just pure unadulterated fun. That's true.
Yes.
The only pod left standing at the end is Anakin securing his first complete race and his first win. Watto tries to renege on the bet, and Qui-Gon threatens to get the Hutts involved, so the boy is freed. Anakin says a sad goodbye to his mother, and the group heads back to their newly repaired ship. Before they can board, Darth Maul, however, attacks. Saving his double-sided blade reveal for later when there's definitely more dramatic effect, Qui-Gon uses his super jump powers to evade the attacking Sith apprentice, and they set a course for Coruscant to attend a special Senate session. Once on Coruscant, Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Anakin take an Uber over to the Jedi Council to inform them of the attack. Qui-Gon also asks that Anakin be allowed to take his ordinary wizarding level exams, which he fails because he's a little too old and, checks notes, loves his mother?
Yes.
Back in the Senate.
That is definitely a red flag.
Sheev Papleton.
Our good pal Sheev.
Continues his
Great
low-key
name.
hostile these names, I swear, takeover of the Supreme Chancellor's seat, convincing Queen Amidala to call for a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Valorium.
No confidence in you.
Valorium is actually a pretty good name, I'm going to be honest. I really like how it just rolls off the
Future
tongue.
children name.
Yeah, that's
Sheev
right.
Whitley. Just saying.
Sheev Valorium Whitley.
Yes, that's a great CVW.
Lorian for sure.
Now that the galactic seat of power is up for grabs, Palpatine is ready for the Queen and her entourage to head back to Naboo. Amidala has the bright idea to head to the surface to ask the Gungans for help. Boss Nass agrees after Padme takes a knee, and he promotes Jar Jar to general for some reason.
As one does. I like, just cut in here, I like, hey, we're being attacked. You have an army. Send your men out there to get killed.
That's right.
Okay, we got this. Jar Jar, you're general.
Cool. The Gungan army will meet the Trade Federation droids on the battlefield to act as a diversion so the Jedi can escort the Queen and her security detail back to the palace to capture the Viceroy. A team of pilots, along with Anakin, who's still 9, and R2, head out to attack the control ship in order to disable the droid army, introducing the coolest new vehicle of the prequels, the yellow and chrome Naboo N1 Starfighter. So sick.
Yes.
The battle rages on 3 fronts.
Just like Neo said. So sick.
I'm so sick. Okay.
That tied in really well, actually.
Great job.
The pilots are firing on the control ship. The Gungans are chucking blue balls at the droids while the Queen's Guard make their way to the throne room. Cue Duel of the Fates. If you don't get hyped for this John Williams masterpiece, then you must be dead. Darth Maul activates his double-sided lightsaber finally and begins his 3-way battle with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, blowing my 13-year-old brain to smithereens.
Yep.
The music swells, the laser swords hum, blasters go pew-pew, and droids make beeping, whistling noises. Now that's what I call Star Wars.
Beep, boop, beep.
The 3-way lightsaber fight continues with a lot of platform jumping, and Obi-Wan gets separated by some locking power bands. He tries to catch up, but is locked out again. He can only watch as his master is headbutted by Darth Maul, and then the lightsaber hilt stabs through his gut. Once unlocked, Obi-Wan charges at Maul and is knocked down the hole. There's always an endless hole in Star Wars. Barely able to hang on, he uses the Force to leap out and force grab his fallen master's green lightsaber just in time to deal a finishing slice to Darth Maul's waistline. Maul falls down the hole in 2 pieces after only 1 line of dialogue in the entire movie. He's still awesome and also not really dead. Spoilers if you haven't seen the Clone Wars show or Solo's end credits.
Spoilers.
The Viceroy is captured. Annie destroys the control ship like Will Smith in Independence Day, and all the droids shut down, ending the Gungan slaughter. Unfortunately, Jar Jar survives. Qui-Gon's dying request was for Obi-Wan to train the boy, which newly knighted Obi-Wan informs Yoda he will do with or without his permission. Senator Palpatine tells Anakin he'll be watching his career with great interest. Yoda and Mace Windu ponder whether Darth Maul was the master or the apprentice at the Qui-Gon Jinn barbecue. Cue music. Directed by George Lucas. Full nostalgia goggles here, but episode 1 rules. Jar Jar still kind of sucks, though. The end.
Great job.
Thank you,
To
Hunter.
both Ashby and Hunter.
Fantastic.
Yes, that
I
was
didn't read any of it until you read it, so it was fun to just hear. So if you
that
thought
was
we were just kinda
fantastic.
quiet,
So
we're just listening in.
No, it was fantastic, and very, very good stuff. So, thank you, Hunter, for the synopsis. We really appreciate it. It was really well done, and that brings us to 10 questions, give or take. Which our first one, as always, do you like this film, Kyle?
I said yes, and it's in my top 12. So
There's 11 Star Wars.
there was a Christmas special.
That doesn't count as
It
a movie.
does.
No, it doesn't.
It's canon.
Was it released in film? Actually, there are 12 because the Clone Wars had a movie too.
I'm just saying,
So-
TV movie.
No, it doesn't count.
It counts.
No.
I googled it to find out how many to put in my top rank, and it says there are 12 Star Wars.
Yeah, the Clone Wars.
Either way,
Yeah.
it counts.
Yeah. Anyway,
I said just quick synopsis of it. Not even synopsis, just synopsis of my memory. I remember going to the movie theater and loving it. Like as I was 11 or 12, Hunter was 13, so I think I was 12 or 11. But growing up, I've mentioned it before on the podcast, but my dad and I, we didn't really watch a lot of things together. But he had his main things that he loved. He loved John Wayne movies and he loved Star Wars. Now, he wasn't some hardcore fan that loved it, but he was a person like, if it's on TV, we're stopping and we're watching this. So for me as a kid, that was like something I connected with him. And so since it was coming out to a new movie into theaters again, it was something that he and I could go do together. So I was really excited about that. Honestly, as a 12-year-old, I thought Jar Jar Binks was funny. He was just a comedic character coming in. It reminded me somewhat of the way that Chewbacca was in the movie. He was just some crazy animal character. As an adult looking back, different character. But for me, I did enjoy it. Like I said, going back and watching it now, there's definitely better Star Wars movies. But I still don't think it's probably the worst. But
no, it's not.
But I enjoy it.
I put yes, question mark. I don't love it, but I enjoyed it when I rewatched it this week. Of the prequels, I liked it more than Attack of the Clones, but not as much as Revenge of the Sith. Trying to, when you look at it through, I guess, your nostalgia goggles and your current, adult vision, yes, I found so many things that were wrong with this movie rewatching it.
Problematic.
But as a kid in 1999, I was 12 when this came out, so turned 13 later that summer. I loved it. I mean, as a kid,
Yeah.
I mean, the pod racing, everything was pretty awesome.
Well, it's sold to our perfect age where it's like, okay, now where, like, especially then, let me have all the toys now.
Yes.
Right.
You were
All
still
the
that age
toys.
that you want to
Right.
go home and reenact this and play with that. So
Yes.
for me, it was a perfect age for that. But
Absolutely.
how about
Ashby?
you, ma'am?
So I was 11 in 1999, and we had a VHS set of the original movies
Yes.
that my dad sort of used as a babysitter.
Yes.
So like if he needed us to be like still and quiet, he would be like, "So we're gonna watch Star Wars." And we put Star Wars on, and so he was also a huge fan because when he was a teenager, he was working in a movie theater when the original came out in the late 70s, I think.
77.
So yeah, so he day one fan basically. And so, it was just something that I grew up with. And so when we realized that they were going to do prequels, we went as a family, to watch the movie, which was exciting. And with nostalgia goggles and being a kid, I was just excited at the lasers and the pew pew and the lightsaber fights. And I wasn't thinking about the greater story arcs and everything behind it. So I wasn't I wasn't aware enough to even be disappointed. I thought it was great. But when I go back and watch it now, especially having watched all of the movies to date, you know, I think that the prequels get a bad rap, but this is definitely my least favorite prequel. However, I have to admit that I think that as I got older, as 2 and 3 came out, a lot of what I liked about those was informed proportionally by how hot Hayden Christensen was. So once again, I was just kind of like,
The hotness showed up.
I was like, I mean, like, there's some things that are problematic, but like, man, he is on fire, literally. Anyway, so I put
Spoiler.
yeah,
For episode 3.
spoiler. I put the 3 original ones are always going to be my fave. This is my least favorite of the prequels. I like 7, 8, and 9 more than Hunter. I loved Rogue One, but not Han Solo standalone. So this movie, if you're going like 1 to whatever, probably ranks like 8th-ish for me.
In the top 12.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, it definitely made my top 12 as well.
Yeah.
I mean, like I say, I think I've gone back and watched documentaries like where this movie was coming out, and it shows a lot of the fans like waiting in line to get in that have been, you know, probably more so our parents' age at that point, or a little bit, you know,
Right.
younger, older, that were there, super excited to go see it. You know, that were fully in cosplay, everything else. Whenever cosplay wasn't as much of a thing,
Right.
and then they filmed them coming out of the theater, and it's like,
Right.
oh,
Yeah.
you know, you've got some that are like, I love it, it's amazing, but you've
Right.
got some others like, want to see it again,
Right.
see what happens.
Yeah.
And,
I don't know how I feel.
yeah,
Yeah.
but, like as a kid watching it, you know, I didn't have any like the same way. I wasn't looking to see like, well, how does this connect and how does that like even this past week watching it, I was watching and saying, oh, there's so and so. He comes into play later. Oh, there's this, and it's like things that as a kid that I wasn't as familiar with in general. I just didn't pick up on.
Right.
But as an adult watching it now, it's still like you say, it's not amazing, but
All right.
doesn't get the rap it gets is not deserved. I don't think.
I don't think so either.
Casting. What role was cast the best and the worst? I know Ashby's a big fan of
Go
casting.
for it, man.
Go ahead.
Liam Neeson was the
Totally
best
agree.
for
Yeah,
sure,
absolutely.
100%. Like
that was
hands
my,
down.
my top choice.
The kid does a good job.
He did a decent job.
You know, he did I feel like there's a lot on his shoulders. He probably wasn't old enough to understand. Like, hey, you're going to be Anakin Skywalker.
yeah,
like,
you're going to be Darth Vader.
right.
What was, was it? I guess it was previous, but Jingle All the Way was before this movie with the Arnold.
I
Yeah,
think so.
Jingle All the Way
Yeah.
came out in
Right.
'96.
Yes.
I didn't realize that was the same
Same
kid
kid.
until just now. I had put that the chemistry between he and Natalie Portman wasn't there, nor should have it have been. He was a
Right.
child.
He was a child.
And she had just turned 18. So
She was technically supposed to still be a child. So,
Yes.
you know, even though she was like, what, in her 20s?
no, she was actually 16 when this filmed.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
She's that young?
She turned 18 in 1999.
I thought she was older than that.
Yeah,
Okay, well, that makes
I
more
had to look it
sense.
up, too,
She could
so.
play like a 14-year-old.
Still,
Anyway, and I know it doesn't count as casting, but obviously the worst was Jar Jar Binks. Like,
You honestly picked out the two I had. I put for Jar Jar Binks. I wouldn't even say it's a casting issue. It's just a character
flaw.
issue.
Right.
Because the guy
I think
that-
Ahmad Best did the best he could
Yeah.
with what the direction they gave him.
right.
and I feel like, you know, not to get in some deep topic, and there's probably like we'll probably bring him up a couple times, but like Jar Jar itself, as we look on it now, you can see where like it's easy to look and see there's some racial issues there.
Right.
For him and for George Lucas, if you go back and read interviews and everything else with them, both of them deny that that was everything, and even him, you know, saying himself is like, I didn't see that, you know, even acting it myself, that's not what I saw. But for us in the generation where we live in, obviously we can see that now and see like, okay, I can definitely see where that could be an issue.
Yes.
But the guy himself, even if you look at pictures on set, it's like he's full blown character actor where he's got a costume on and he's got like a little hat that looks like his, you know, Jar Jar's head or whatever on top. So he went all out for it, and I don't think, like I said, I don't think he did a bad job himself. It's
Right,
just the role he was given.
It was a bad character. You don't see it as much in this movie as you would in the next two prequels, but Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan was perfectly cast. He was following up from Sir Alec Guinness from the original trilogy, and at this point, I would say he's the Obi-Wan I prefer.
I think you could. So, you're seeing Obi-Wan Kenobi at such different points in his life that I don't think I could be like, oh, he did a better job than Alec Guinness.
Right.
Because I would never say an unkind word against Sir Alec Guinness.
Of course not. No.
But
Well, hello there. Oh, sorry.
but I do think that you can tell that he studied Guinness's work.
Yes.
Like that and I think that that's the kind of actor Ewan McGregor is. And so I think that he definitely put some effort into trying as much as he could to tie in what Guinness brought to the role and then what it would have been like to be a younger version of that character.
Right. Okay.
Well, if you think about it, too, he's one of the only... I mean, there's, probably a handful or so, but going into those movies, he's one of the only ones that's a younger version of himself.
Right.
Like, within reason. Honestly,
Right.
Anakin being Darth Vader, spoiler alert, but he's a kid versus a grown adult versus...
The biggest spoiler alert.
Yes.
And Yoda is literally just,
Yoda's literally
he's CGI at this point.
Right.
To be fair,
no
he
longer
was a puppet.
He was a puppet first, and then he turned into
Right.
CGI.
He was a puppet. They redid it and turned him
that
into
glow
CGI.
up, man. Let me tell you.
But just to see, there's a couple other people that technically returned later, but for him, he's one of the only ones that had to make sure he did a good job preparing for the next actor, pretty much.
Yeah,
Right.
and I mentioned this in another section, but Ian McDiarmid as Sheev, our good friend Sheev, Palpatine, he reprised his role from 1983,
Which is
Return of the Jedi,
bananas.
which is insane. Absolutely, but you could tell he was just having a blast in that role. So.
Sure.
Oh, of course, to be able to do that again and to play him when he was still considered a good character. Like to be able, how many times as an actor do you get the opportunity in something like prequels where you know where your character is going to end up and you get to try to convince the audience that they're not there yet.
Yes.
It's just so that kind of happened a little bit with the Lord of the Rings, with the Hobbit when they did the prequels. And there was a lot there also that was an issue, but
Sorry, we can watch 12 hours of
it was interesting. Anyway, so
Well, even for that, and like I said, I may mention that in the future part, but Palpatine is one of the ones that I didn't remember.
Right.
For me, I came into watching this. I watched all the Star Wars last year again, but it's been a long time since I've really focused and tried to really who's this and how does this all work together.
Right.
So I came into this movie not remembering much.
Right. Well, he was never named Palpatine in the original trilogy. He was just the Emperor.
he was just the Emperor.
And the
yeah.
only reason I made the connection so early was I had a novelization of Return of the Jedi.
And it says it.
And he was mentioned at the very end, Emperor Palpatine. I'm like, I wonder if this is the same guy from Star Wars Episode 1.
And so
Wait a second.
watching it for me,
Connections!
It goes all the way to the top.
I was so focused on some of the other things going on, such as, the Jedi and everything else. So as he's sneaking his way into becoming the senator or emperor or whatever, his different roles, he's just okay, well, he does come across as a good dude. For me, he comes across as a guy that's good, but he's probably not the smartest in the world. It's how it came across, how his character did. But then to know he's doing all these things in the background.
Pulling those
he's playing
strings,
that.
playing both sides.
Right.
Pretty awesome. What are some of your favorite scenes? I mean, can we just agree that the pod racing was really enjoyable, even if it wasn't necessary to the plot?
This is pod racing.
This is podcasting.
Wow.
I'm surprised I didn't put that in the script
Yeah.
somewhere. Pod racing thing was awesome. I think it was when I know Kyle, you listened to some of the binge mode Phantom Menace episode. I listened to it this week for research purposes. Shout out to Mallory Rubin, Jason Concepcion. They mentioned that George Lucas loved car culture.
Because American Graffiti is an awesome movie.
Yes, that was one of his first films, and he loved. So the pod racing scene was able to do two things for him. One, it was to show off his love for car culture, but also to show off the technological advances they had at the time, because he wanted to be the first to do some stuff. And
Well, even they waited so long to put those movies out.
Yeah, because
he had ideas, but he couldn't.
the technology hadn't caught
No.
up yet.
And so that was one of those things that they'd spent the money and the time building this technology that he had to take some extra moments to show it off.
Right.
And I look at it too, because CGI I know has been around for a little while, but there's a lot of this stuff in this movie, like pod racing, for instance, that comes across really well.
Yes.
I don't get lost in the fact of, okay, well, that's obviously fake, or this is
Right.
not.
No, it looked really, really real.
Yoda to me looks more fake. The one I watched was the CGI one, so seeing
kinda
Yoda
knocky.
Yes, but the more I look at him, I realize that yes, he's probably not right there in the room. But other than that, pod racing,
Pod racing.
I've sucked at the video game.
I have the video game. When we do the Joe Davis Classic at some point this year, it's been postponed but when we do that, we're pulling that game out and we're gonna have a tournament. I suck at it too.
Eric
So
found out I'm bad at it. He's like, you know what? Great.
we're gonna play this game. I'm gonna go ahead and get good at it. I gotta find the chords though. The lightsaber duel, Darth Maul, Obi-Wan, and Qui-Gon is another highlight, and probably in my opinion, top 2, top 3 lightsaber battle in the whole series. I don't know how to rank those, but I'm thinking of that one, Anakin and Obi-Wan's duel in Episode 3, and
I don't know if it's necessarily the best or like, you know, it's definitely good in its own right, because I remember being a kid, and especially like a young boy, being really excited about this movie because they kept the commercials and everything else kept focusing on there's this new Darth Maul guy that like, and you got a glimpse of like a two-ended sword or a lightsaber.
Yeah, I think that it's not like the fight itself in some places seems kind of stilted, and I don't know if it's because of Liam Neeson's age. Like he wasn't obviously going to be as a dynamic a fighter as, you know, Obi-Wan was, and Ewan McGregor obviously was younger, so he could do a lot more dynamic stunts. But I think that what elevates it is not necessarily the fight itself, but like that memory you have of him like clicking on one side and you're like, oh, here we go. And then he clicks on the other side and you're like, what?
yeah,
Like,
spoiler alert, we'll get to that at question 9.
Yeah.
Well, that's the fact too that he doesn't do them both at the same time. Like he takes that instant to show that off.
Yeah.
Like, hey guys, I got you. Yeah.
Right.
I think part of the reason that fight may seem stilted is because they're cutting back and forth between everything going on in space, you know, everything going on with the Queen. It's not a continuous cut of just the fight.
Right.
I just remember, I made a note here to have to talk about it, and I feel like I've somewhat mentioned it before, but I remember us being, I don't know if, couldn't drive yet, so maybe still middle school or something. But Hunter lived just a block or two away from my parents, so his parents did, and then Alex Winters lived right over there with him. And I remember like it was one summer, I felt like we'd been swimming or something, and we came back and we're like, we should have a lightsaber fight. And I was like, well, let me go home and get mine. And Hunter went upstairs and had his lightsaber. Yeah.
Yes.
And as a kid, like these are these moments you've dreamed of, because loving this movie, growing up as a child with my dad, I had some little fake like plastic green sword that I pretended was my lightsaber because they didn't sell lightsabers.
Right.
Versus they finally came out with them in this movie. And so I went home and got mine, and then Hunter had his, and then here comes Alex from across the street. And he has the Darth Maul one. It's the double-ended one. So it felt like we were literally fighting Darth Maul.
It's about to go down.
Yep. Like I never owned one myself, but I was so jealous that like I was like, hey, can I try that out? Let me see that real quick. And
man.
You realize how hard it is to fight with one of those though, because like you're constantly grabbing hold of like
You've got to study
swing.
the ancient art of Jedi sword fighting, which Mace Windu did. By the way, he was a master of all 7 forms. Apparently, there are 7 forms. By the way,
we were just about young
Of
kids
course there
swinging
are.
really hard and breaking other people's things. So.
Other favorite scenes.
So one of mine was when Anakin turned his mom's words against her in the scene with her.
So that's what kids do.
Yeah, because that's what kids do. And it was so beautiful because she's like, I don't want you pod racing. And he's like, okay. And then he's kind of quiet for a second. He's like, Mom, you're always saying that we should help people. And
The worst thing in the galaxy is people don't help each other.
Yeah,
Well, here we have people who
like,
need help.
We need to help
I
them.
can help them.
And you can just see her face where she's like, are you kidding me?
Yes.
Like, this is when you chose to listen to me.
Go ask your Force father.
That's right. That's right. Oh, man.
Any other favorite scenes?
I just made a note, but about the Darth Maul scene. Like, I loved him as a character. I loved the fact that how almost like a ninja he was. And I looked him up because the same way before the whole Han Solo came out with that movie or spinoff, where he reprised his role briefly in that. I looked it up, was like, whatever happened to him and what's more to know about him?
Yeah.
Because the canon for Star Wars is gigantic. Like, we were talking about this before we started recording.
And it gets messed up a lot.
Right.
Yeah, but like, we mentioned earlier, like Harry Potter, like it's pretty big, but it's very reasonable where you can go figure it out for the most part. Versus Star Wars lasts so long, and there's been so many different forms of it with books and comics and TV shows.
Well, I mean, it's like I said, it's about how vast the source material is. So, like the source material for Harry Potter is technically 7 books. You get through 7 books. You know, the source material for the Lord of the Rings original movies are 3 books.
Yep.
But to try to do, it's like why I say I never am going to go back and read every comic for every superhero I'm interested in, because the source material is so vast. They've been putting out comics since the 40s. But it's the same thing with Star Wars. Like, there's so much ancillary, especially book series, to try to tackle that it's just like, that sounds like a lot of work.
Well, that's why I looked him up because I was like, there's no way I'm going to read everything. It was like, did he for sure die? And it's like, no, he didn't. Like,
interesting. See, if you had asked me, I would have been like, yeah, he's 100%
in the
dead.
comics, he like goes mad. He ends up getting like robotic legs. And I think his brother ends up helping him like get his legs back somehow and get his mind back.
It is detailed in the Clone Wars and Rebels television series, which
See,
I have not seen, but I've heard they're really good. So
I also don't know where he comes from. Like,
I don't know much about
how he ends up being an apprentice.
Yeah, well, I think what takes on is he becomes the master and his brother becomes the apprentice at that point. Where his brother, like at this point, But evidently, he and Obi-Wan go back and forth fighting for years.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I am excited to see because for me, like, I'll go back to what I was saying. Is I feel like his character was cut so short because all the commercials were so big about this is the new Darth Vader, and Darth Vader like had such a presence that you barely even saw him in any of these movies. Like he made a brief appearance, and either you saw the sheen of his helmet or just his breathing or just anything. You know, that dude's bad. Like, and so you expected somewhat the same Darth Maul, but all of a sudden, here he is, first movie, he's cut in half, gone forever, for as far as we know.
Right.
He got 3 lines.
Yes, but I don't know. I feel like he was cut too short, but it was cool. And I know Disney Plus is doing an Obi-Wan series with Ewan McGregor as well. So hopefully, maybe we'll see him fight Darth Maul as it comes back. But who knows?
Cool. Any other favorite scenes? All right, favorite quotes. Who wants to go first?
Are you an angel?
See, young Anakin with the pickup lines.
Oh, man.
As young as 9 years old.
9-year-old boy got game.
Are you an angel?
Wow.
I think they exist on this other star planet.
Gross.
Oh, my goodness.
So one of mine was actually, I was watching it, and I guess I don't remember this scene, and I was not prepared for it. But when he says goodbye to his mom, and then he has to come back again to say goodbye again, and they talk about whether or not he'll see her again, and she says, "Be brave and don't look back." And I started crying, and I was like, "I hate this movie. It made me cry. How dare you?"
It
just hits different when you're older.
Oh, it does. Yeah, it really does. I had a few exchanges. Queen Amidala and Anakin's first exchange, where or Padme, at the time, you're a slave, and Anakin just gets like indignant at that. It's like, I'm a person, and my name is Anakin. And it's like, I mean, go ahead and put that back in her face. Like, look, I am not, something lower just because I live on this planet where that's considered okay. I am a person.
Right.
And so I love that. I love the banter between Padme and Qui-Gon Jinn while they were on Tatooine, where Padme, she's the queen, who's, the handmaiden here. Before I get that, just a shout out to whenever R2 saves the ship and the decoy queen's like, "Hey, Padme, go wash up this droid."
Right.
And it's like, that's the queen you're talking to.
Right.
So Padme's like, "Are you sure about this? Trusting our fate to a boy we hardly know? The queen will not approve." And Qui-Gon's like, "The queen doesn't need to know." Padme's like, "Well, I don't approve."
Yeah, she's like, "Well, I don't approve."
And it's like, that has a double meaning now because you're the queen. Anyway.
Right.
I like the one where Yoda's talking about Anakin because for me, especially too, coming back as an adult, looking into this and being like, why doesn't he qualify? Or like, why? It's because he has fear of like losing his mom because he loves her so much. And I know it goes way deeper than that, but he said, fear leads to anger and anger leads to hate. And it's like, well, okay, well, for this instance, it does. Like, not necessarily every time, but like for this movie to work and for that, for their judgment over Anakin to work, they had to have something in that line.
Yes. There was a line early in the film between Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. So Obi-Wan says, but Master Yoda says I should be mindful of the future. And Qui-Gon responds, but not at the expense of the moment. And I think that's just good advice in general for life. Like, be mindful of what's going to happen, but don't let it take over what's happening in the here and now.
Right.
I mean, deep lore from Star Wars. Quotes.
Yeah.
So.
He was like, Liam Neeson was passing out like all the heat in this because he also said like,
well, he only had one movie to do it in.
Yes,
unfortunately.
and he did an amazing job. But said, remember, your focus determines your reality. So just to think about the same thing, it's I've thought about it today. Just if you like you're just not having a great day, like where's your focus at in that? Is it on the negative? Because if it is, it's going to go bad. So it's not going to get any better.
Right.
Versus where's your focus at, and that's going to determine your outcome of what you're doing. I mean, that's pretty much a galaxy version of saying make it a great day or not. The choice is yours. But slightly different.
Yes, we still quote that at my school.
Oh, absolutely.
Like that's our. Anytime I do announcements, that's my closing line. Make it a great day or not. The choice is yours.
We always just kind of like whatever during school as that's being announced, like, oh, make it great. But it's like, no, actually now, like 10, 20 years later.
Yeah, it was really easy to make fun of, but now you look back. Like I used to make fun of one of my elementary school principals, Mr. Gilbert, because he would do the whole like I love you thing.
Yes.
It's like, I love you, okay. But like as an adult, I think about like how many kids that he may have come in contact as a principal that no one ever told them they loved them. And like to, it matters. Like saying things, communicating things matter. So
the same way anytime there was an opportunity, he'd break out his guitar and say like Angels Among Us or whatever I think is the one they would sing.
Yes.
I remember being in the show.
Alabama.
Yes.
Angels Among Us.
I watched them sing that live in the early 90s.
That'll bring tears to your eyes too though. Like I remember I felt like in high school at some time and like remembering that and being like, that was kind of an emotional moment. I remember being like a talent show at Glendale Kinley in like the old school auditorium. They had all of the like competitors get on stage and everybody around the room is singing and waving back and forth. And then my sister comes in and she's like, I can hear you from the other side of the house. Shut up.
From somewhere up above.
They come to you and me in our darkest hours.
Her saying she can't sing.
We're harmonizing now.
I can't sing.
What worked the best in this movie?
That was the spirit of Randy Jackson.
Yes.
Just come through me.
All right, dog. What worked the best?
Oh, man.
I really liked the journey of Anakin becoming Darth Vader on that road to it. I don't, like I said, I would have liked to have gone and watched 2 and 3 right after, just through remembering things. But I knew I'd get it confused if I did. But watching this time and just realizing that, honestly, for the most part in this movie, the kid's just a happy kid. And to realize, knowing where he's going to end up at, I really like the journey to see how he gets there. It's not just a typical movie where, like, Harry Potter, for instance, like, Voldemort pretty much was like a bad kid, like, for the most part. And he grew up, it didn't surprise you for him becoming Voldemort versus... Anakin's not. He's not your typical, like, everybody hates him or he's just a jerk. So obviously becomes a bigger jerk. Like, it's not the situation.
The Jedi really failed him, honestly. They really did. I mean, we can talk about that a little bit when we ever get to Attack of the Clones, but probably shouldn't have been paired with Obi-Wan. Probably should have been,
Well, if Qui-Gon Jinn had lived, would he have been any different?
Right.
Exactly. Or if he'd been paired with any Jedi that had any kind of experience training someone.
Right.
I mean, but yeah. I put that the relationship between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon was wonderful to see. And then I also said that showing some of the failings of the Jedi Order in hindsight worked really well because it showed that they're flawed, who can't foresee everything that's coming. I think about the conversation Qui-Gon had with the Jedi Council about, I believe he was a Sith Lord. And I think it was Ki-Adi-Mundi, who was the guy with the big head, cone head. And he was like, it's impossible. The Sith have been extinct for thousands of years. And Mace Windu, Samuel L. Jackson, love him. I think if the Sith had returned, we would have seen that coming. And it's like, no, you didn't.
They're here.
You kind of missed that one there, buddy. And then at the end of the movie, Mace Windu shows up with Yoda. It's like, so I've confirmed it. That was definitely a Sith Lord.
Right.
It's like, well, way to go there, buddy.
A little bit of hubris there.
But I do like, sometimes our heroes, or oftentimes our heroes, are just flawed people as well, and they're not going to get everything right. So I think that worked best in hindsight. So. And I also put Ian McDermott was a joy as Senator Palpatine, who just crushing every scene he was in.
Crushing it. Side note, I have to remark that the lead singer of Alabama is named Randy Owens.
Not Randy Jackson.
Not Randy Jackson.
Okay. That makes my reference a little
also
off.
I'm just letting y'all roll with it. I wasn't going to call
Also, I really love that in an episode to Star Wars, we managed to sing an Alabama song.
Yes,
so
we've connected the
never
two.
let it be said that this podcast is not celebrating the random.
Yes.
So the only thing I put for what worked best and kind of goes in the same vein that Eric was saying is having a fully formed Jedi Order, which we've never seen before. Being able to see them as an organization and a unit, having a council, kind of talking about rules, and it made me think a lot, not to get too deep, but it made me think a lot of the Catholic Church. Mm-hmm. An order, an organization, a church, whatever you want to call it, is only as good as its components, as the people who make it up.
Right.
And people are flawed. so I feel like where the order and where the Catholic Church has gone wrong historically is in letting things like pride and greed and hubris, get too much of a foothold in people's minds and hearts. And so then you start thinking that you are infallible and you are untouchable, and that is, from the top down.
Yes.
And so a lot of this movie was about sort of how wrong the council is on multiple fronts. And so it made me think a lot about the church.
Right.
And some of the issues that we know kind of go all the way to the top, not just in the Catholic Church, but in many organizations, private and public.
Yep.
So I thought that was really interesting, but it was nice to be able to see them for the first time as an entity that has rules and laws and regulations and meetings and memos and all kinds of stuff. So,
well, just to see too, how is that going to work, or do you have to follow everything they say exactly to a T, or to the point of when they're talking about Anakin, like, we're going to train him regardless. Even both of them end up saying it pretty much. Qui-Gon did, and then when he's gone, Obi-Wan said it. But it's like, even if you approve or don't approve, we're doing this, and so it's not where they bestow powers upon them. It's a matter of who the people are in general. Like, and so, I don't know, that gets into the meta whatever word that I can't remember.
Midichlorians.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll talk about those in a second.
But
is it metachlorians or midichlorians?
Midichlorians.
Is there a D?
MIDI.
Okay, midichlorians.
Yes.
Okay.
Like, an outdated, what am I thinking? MIDI. Yeah.
MIDI still works.
No, it doesn't? Okay. Do you have anything else for what worked the best, Kyle?
No, I think that's about
Cool. Nitpicks. Do you want to go first, Ashby, or?
Please.
Go ahead.
The age difference between Anakin and Queen Amidala, although not as large as I suspected, is still pretty big, given their ages. Like, if you're 29 and 34 or whatever, like, fine, cool, okay? But when you're 9 and 14, there's a large gap between you called puberty.
Yeah, that's literally high school and elementary school.
Right. No. Shut it down.
100%.
So that was really problematic.
Are you an angel?
But to be really fair to this movie, there was never any intonation that it was going to be romantic.
No,
that their connection was romantic. It was not a 9-year-old and a 14-year-old making hard eyes at one another.
No, it was not.
It was a 9-year-old being a charming 9-year-old. And a 14-year-old who's really who feels for this kid because of the situation he's in, but is really actually concerned for like the millions of people that she's responsible for.
I would even go so far to say that Anakin probably, when he leaves his home, the only home he's known, looks to this one girl who the only other person he knows other than this Jedi, as a mother figure.
Correct.
Which is problematic going forward.
Right.
But I mean, that's
it's problematic for the next movie when we just jump headfirst into they somehow formed a romantic relationship, and you're like, okay, so that took a hard right.
Of course, and it gets everywhere.
If you're only viewing this one movie as a one movie thing, too,
yes,
you make a good point, because as a 9-year-old boy, like, I think of the swimming pool, like, when there was older girls there, like, how often did you ever, like, pretend, like, you feel like I guess flirting's not quite the right word.
Right.
Because I wouldn't even say
showing off.
Yes.
I was trying to figure out the right thing, because it's technically like flirting, but it's not. It's the best flirting a 9-year-old can do.
It's not like serious flirting.
No.
It's
like, hey, can I get your attention?
Yes.
Type deal.
Right. Yes.
And I'll say sweet and nice things, and like,
because I feel like at that age you've discovered maybe that you want a woman's attention, but you haven't quite figured out why. You want
exactly.
It. And so you have no idea what you're doing. You're just kind of like, hey, you're pretty. Mm-hmm. You look like an angel.
I'm gonna pretend to drown in the pool.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. Exactly.
Oh man.
Oh,
maybe that's what
Wendy Peppercorn.
We need one of those like spin-off movies between 1 and 2 now.
Yes.
Hey, that worked out between
it's in a galactic pool somewhere.
Between Wendy and
yeah, they end up marrying each other.
What's his name? Squints and the Sandlot. Well, maybe it's not as rare as we thought.
Hey.
What other nitpicks do you have, Ashby?
The only other one I have was subtitles for some characters and not others.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
What was the deciding factor? I don't. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. I put unnecessary introduction of midichlorians to Star Wars lore. I know that's like you brought it up here, and I think it gets a brief mention in Episode 3, but then they're never mentioned again. And it just kind of, again, I'm not really hardcore on this, but I know a lot of Star Wars fans felt like it kind of ruined the mythical, spiritual connection between the Force and the Jedi, and it turned it to something science-based, and you can kind of weigh the merits there. But
well, even I think the big thing is before anybody had a chance of interacting with the Force.
Yes.
Whereas this now means something within you, either you can or you can't.
You're making it genetic, basically.
Yes. I put Jar Jar Binks, but I recognize this is the kids' movie for kids, so he gets a pass. Tax and trade laws as a plot device in a kids' movie, though. Just, like I said.
Is Star Wars for kids, though?
I would say it is.
I don't think it was intended to be. Like, if you look at 4, 5, and 6, those are not children's movies.
That's fair.
I know George Lucas has gone on the record, especially talking about Jar Jar, about how it was created as a kid's type thing, is to have humor in it that you've never, like, there was a clip of him on set during the process of everything, being like, this guy, Jar Jar, is going to come in, and he's a character like we've never had before. He's the funniest character we've had ever.
Right.
Like, type of deal. Especially gumming out in the way it was then, I would say it was somewhat aimed towards kids because they knew they were going to turn around and sell a lot of toys with it, do a lot of things with it. But at the same time, I do acknowledge the other side where they hit on both ages. Almost the same way that Marvel movies do.
They're
now.
trying to get the parents and the kids. So they want the parents to bring their kid to the movie, and then they want the kid to beg for all the toys. I mean, it's merchandising in general.
It's the same way, too, that we are obsessed now with Marvel movies versus growing up. They're taking a lot of, not say because of the same,
obsessed.
Obsessed.
Whatever. But they're taking things that, we loved or came to know of as kids, and now if we had kids of our own, we'd be excited to take them to it. Same way our parents grew up watching Star Wars, or if they did.
Right.
And then they turned around, there's that bond of going together now and taking your kid.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And the last thing I put, I feel like George Lucas was 10 years behind the times when he wrote the script to this. It's something they talk about in wrestling, how Vince McMahon's just so far behind on pop culture. But the reason I put this is I feel like he was 10 years behind, and he was watching Full House while writing the script. And decided to give Stephanie Tanner's catchphase, "How rude," to Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, that was weird. I noticed that.
Jar Jar says it like 2 or 3 times.
How rude.
How rude.
Well, and to be fair, Jar Jar's character is funny. Like, he is the comedic relief. Like, when he gets his when he gets his tongue stuck and he's like, like, it is really funny. If he had had a normal way of speaking, like if they had just given him a British accent and he was funny and he was still the comedic relief, it would have been fine.
Less screen time.
Also that, yeah.
He was kind of all over the movie. Maybe less screen time.
Right.
What about you, Kyle? Nitpicks for you? Did we steal them all?
Yeah, we've covered everything I had.
Cool. Any questions about this movie that have been left unanswered? And I do have one.
I don't have any because honestly I can't remember all the movies. The other one's good enough to be like, oh, this happened, or y'all were like, well, actually it was explained multiple times here.
All right. Yes, Ashby.
Force babies. What is happening?
Where do force babies come from?
Why is this happening? Okay,
Galactic
I
storks.
totally forgot about this part. I remember the midichlorians because I was like, what in the world? They didn't even mention that in the
possible
3
the midichlorians
original
conceived him.
movies. I don't like... I remember the midichlorians because I remember people being mad that like suddenly you have to have midichlorians to have the Force when that was never mentioned in 4, 5, and 6. But I did not remember that he was supposed to be immaculately conceived.
There was no father.
And I was just like, what?
I carried him. I raised him.
What do you mean there was no father?
It's like, seriously, no, it was the father. You're just
what,
kidding.
Yeah, like what?
Like, that's
but
the
you're
thing.
literally making him a god at that
like
point.
a Jesus, a Christ-like character.
Yes. So
which
now
feels
this
into
becomes,
their prophecy type lore, but
yes. So now this becomes like a Christ-like myth, where we're talking about.
Jesus would have won more pod races before then. I mean, I'm just saying.
I mean, I just was like, I don't understand why. Because here's the thing, and I do not want to get religious at all about this, but it's like, what does it matter? What does immaculate conception matter? If someone is part of a prophecy and you believe in that sort of mythological origin story of someone being destined to do great things, and they have midichlorians and they have the Force, and like, what does it matter that she anyway.
It was an.
So
It was an. I think it was two things. One, it was unnecessarily added where it could have been just.
Right.
But two, it was probably just a way to say we don't want to think of who his father was, so let's just do this.
Right.
Yeah.
It was so weird.
I would much rather, and I'm not saying this because of beliefs or not, but I'd much rather have him been somebody else. It's like some random guy that you don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
So that now you could have an entire movie of trying to figure out who in the world his dad was.
Yes.
Like,
Where in
Right.
the world is Anakin Skywalker's father?
yes.
Right.
He wears a red trench coat.
Yes.
The one question I have is not as deep as this, but I did think about this the other day. In this movie, Padme Amidala is queen, and she was elected queen at 14. In the next movie, Senator Palpatine moves to become chancellor, and Padme Amidala becomes senator of the Naboo. And there's another queen. How does Naboo politics work?
Right? I thought about that too. I was like, wait a second. Okay, she's queen. I'm with you. Cool. She was elected queen?
She was elected queen.
That's a president. Like, just saying. That's
Yeah.
not a queen. We don't elect queen. We don't elect royals.
No.
But, I mean, I guess if whatever you want to call your elected official, that's your right. So,
Like, the only way I can kind of, I guess, sure, if you want to call it queen or whatever, the only thing that I can kind of reconcile with is maybe the queen is just like the ruler of the planet, but not the representative for the system of planets that has like their own government, and that would be the senator. Like, kind of like it would be like the governor of the planet.
But she also clearly has some kind of council because
Yes.
she's speaking to them.
Yes, she is.
And so, and she was elected, but that's interesting to me because you would think that a queen that young would have been forced into royalty, that to being, the headship of the nation that young because someone died.
Right.
So it's like you only get so you're telling me an entire planet elected a 14-year-old.
Well, the Gungans, they didn't vote, though. But anyway.
Maybe that's the problem.
Maybe that's the problem. The Gungans got to have more polling sites
Right.
for Naboo politics.
You know what?
There's so much more we can talk about.
I'm not even going to go
Let's
there.
not go on that train. This is my actual favorite section of these 10 questions, the random section, because I have a lot here. Anything else you want to add? A favorite theory, rabbit hole you went down in our question of the week that we didn't post on Facebook, but I posed to you guys. What lightsaber color would you want and why? So, Kyle, I'll let you go first here. Any theories?
It's not a theory, but it's something that me as a person coming in and watching and not remembering hardly anything about this movie until I watched it was Keira Knightley and Natalie Portman confused the mess out of me.
Yes.
Where
Oh,
I had
yeah.
to look it up and be like, which one's which?
Yeah.
Because I'm first watching Natalie Portman be the queen, and I'm looking at the other, knowing in my mind somewhere in the back there was like they switch each other.
little
and
switcheroo.
There's something, but I
Swap.
can't remember what.
Yes.
And so I keep watching, and then there was a scene because me and Erica were talking about watching it, and all of a sudden when Natalie Portman has done the switch and she's out there, we kind of stopped for a second, like, which one is that now?
Right.
And so I Googled it and looked it up and figured it all out. So I don't really have any theories about it. It's just like they did a good job. They picked somebody that actually was convincing versus some movies would just pick some random other guy and
Right.
paint him up and be like, oh, this is the same person.
Right. It also looks like wonderfully strategic. I talk about random decisions that are made behind the camera that Fanon tries to then find a reason for. And so it's interesting to me that, of course, if that is one of your security measures as a queen or an elected official, that you would then go find a handmaiden that looked like you, that you would search for someone to put on your staff to be ready to do that in the event that you needed to
Yes.
swap out as doubles, which is interesting.
Cool. I have a theory that I found fascinating.
I have a theory.
Yes, I have a theory.
It could be bunnies. Oh man, come on, Buffy?
Yeah.
The musical episode of Buffy?
Fair enough. You got you.
I'm not.
I have a
sorry.
theory. It could be witches.
Yes.
I have to watch.
Oh, the musical episode of Buffy is Chef's Kiss.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
Not even Star Wars.
There it is.
Buffy.
So this was on the Star Wars Reddit, and this
Oh,
came out
Lord.
a couple of years ago. The theory is Jar Jar Binks was a trained Force user, knowing Sith collaborator, and will play a central role in The Force Awakens. Now, that obviously didn't turn out to be true, but the idea that I'm going to read some of this, but
Well, it
not
could
all of
have if people hadn't absolutely shamed them
Yes.
into getting rid of his character.
So he says, here I will seek to establish that Jar Jar Binks, far from being simply the bumbling idiot he portrays himself as, is in fact a highly skilled Force user in terms of martial ability and mind control. Furthermore, I assert that he was not, as many people assume, just an unwitting political tool manipulated by Palpatine. Rather, he and Palps were likely in collaboration from the very beginning, and it was entirely possible that Palpatine was a subordinate underling to Binks throughout both trilogies. And he says, given the above, I'll conclude with an argument as to why I believe it's not only possible but plausible that Jar Jar will make a profound impact on the upcoming movies and what his role may be. Basically, he says, let's establish Jar Jar as a skilled warrior, and he shows some videos. Here's Jar Jar nonchalantly executing a standing 20-foot twisting somersault. He says, taken out of context, you'd probably assume that was a Jedi. If you knew nothing about the movie and you saw this character, probably assume that's probably a Jedi or someone who's Force sensitive or whatever. But he says Jar Jar always manages to convince us that he's a bumbling oaf in the midst of a pitched battle, even though he's always incredibly, amazingly successful. Whether single-handedly taking down a battle droid tank or unleashing a barrage of Boombas on their front lines or precisely targeting multiple enemies with a blaster tangled around his ankle, we simply roll our eyes and attribute it to dumb luck. And that's one of the main reasons we as an audience hate Jar Jar. He goes on to basically say, hey, what if Jar Jar is a Sith Lord? Mm-hmm. And it's a really interesting theory. I'm not going to read all of it.
I'll allow it.
No, there's a lot of stuff here.
Okay.
But I would...
standing up. I just have to our little light's dying, and I don't want to give anybody a seizure.
Oh, that's fine.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. But I will say that it is worth seeking out. Look, Jar Jar Binks' Sith Lord theory and decide for yourself because it would make that character really, really, really a lot more interesting. And the theory even goes on to say that if he hadn't been shamed to death in the first movie, that may have taken place, which George Lucas has never commented on that. So
I feel like there's been somebody though, that was involved with the movies that and I don't remember who it was, and it may have been what's his name? The guy that did a lot of the new stuff.
David Fioni?
No, I don't know. Somebody else. I saw it random. I think it's on Wikipedia or something. But he agreed with it to the extent of talking about the guy who did his research, did not just throwing it out there and leaving it. He's backing it up enough to say I could totally believe that that's what we would do with that.
Yeah. Any other favorite theories?
So I don't, this isn't a theory, but I did kind of go down a rabbit hole because, so the first 6 minutes of the movie, they're sort of visiting / infiltrating / trying to get out of this base. And once they get out of the gas chamber, they take down some of the droids. Qui-gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi sort of do this whoosh, flash thing where they move quickly. And I don't remember that when I was watching it as a kid, and I probably wouldn't have even thought about it at the time, but now I'm kind of wait a second, when did that become a power of the Jedi? You can move the freaking Flash.
Part of that's is that a Jedi power or is that just a CGI glitch?
Right. I mean, literally, it was just and they were
the same thing. It was a blink of an eye that they don't acknowledge.
Yes.
But I'm
so I went, just because I know there's so much I'm not aware of. I went to Wikipedia. Because that's a thing.
That is.
And it says force speed is a thing that exists under the umbrella of control, one of the 3 main Jedi abilities. The others being sense and sensibility, alter. So there are 3 umbrellas for force management, powers and learning. And they're the 3 main things that you learn first. So there's control, there's sense, and there's alter. And then there are many, many things that some Jedi can do, some Jedi can't do. Not everyone can do all of them. And force speed falls under control, the way that you can control your body and your mind and your senses and stuff like that. So that's a thing. It's a thing. Apparently they can move like Superman, faster than a speeding bullet.
All right. Lightsaber color.
I only have one more other thing.
Oh, never mind. Sorry.
It's not even a theory, but just the idea of knowing that Darth Vader made C-3PO.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
And he ends up on his ship later and everything else. Does he remember building him? And I know, too, a lot of those droids look
I was going to say, there's a protocol droid at the very beginning of this movie that looks just like C-3PO except for it's silver.
Right.
But at the same time, though, he has the same name. Yeah. So, it's the name that Anakin
gave. But how often do they name, I look at droids, it's how often do people care about what they're actually named?
Right.
I think C-3PO and R2-D2 and BB-8. we know them because they're characters, and
Sure.
they want to sell us all the merchandise. And some of the characters know them because they spend a lot of time with them. But R2-D2 originally was just one of many droids, astromech droids on that ship. They didn't even know who. They didn't know what it was when they brought it in there. What's the call sign? It's R2-D2. I mean,
True.
I can see where if C-3PO is on a ship, that Vader wouldn't really care what the droid's name was. But,
Makes sense.
all right, lightsaber color,
Purple.
purple for me as well. I actually owned a Mace Windu action figure because of the purple lightsaber.
Nice.
I looked into online what each color means.
Yes, you
I did not.
And then to figure out
I thought about it
which-
and I was like, nah, I ain't got that time.
And I think I would be green. It says this color is
of
associated.
course you would be.
Well, like I didn't know. I didn't know if I'd be green or blue. But it says this color is associated with those who value concord, harmony, are helpful, cooperative, spiritual, and demonstrate goodwill. So I was like, I would hope that those are the things I would hope that I would demonstrate.
Right.
So what does
it's
purple mean then?
nothing? It means that
That means that Samuel L. Jackson
Samuel L.
wanted to
Jackson
stand
wanted-
out.
wanted
in a
everybody to be
battle.
able to see what it
Perfect. That's
was.
why I like it. I'm purple because I want to be.
I just thought it looked cool.
It does look awesome.
I looked into it online because at Disney now and Star Wars, like you literally can build your own lightsaber.
Which we will do when we go to Star
Yep.
Wars Land.
we need
Yep.
this. We need this whole. I thought about it today. It's like we need a big budget,
We need a big
For the
budget
trip
and
first off.
a month off from work so we can
That's
go
right.
do everything.
but we need a budget for Star Wars Land where we literally do lots of
Yep.
things from there, and then another one at Harry Potter World. Where
That's
it's
right.
like we buy all the things that we
Wands
wouldn't
and
ever buy just
lightsabers.
by ourselves. But since we're all there together, we're going to buy. But there you get to choose your color and you build everything. But watching that
Team
made me.
purple.
Watching that made me more aware of all the colors because there's a white, there's yellow, there's black, like there's all these other colors that you don't typically see in the main things.
Yeah.
I think we see with Rey, and the newest one it's either white or
It's
yellow.
yellow. Yeah. And that represents a balance between the
It's
good
not necessarily one or the
yeah.
other.
Two quick lightsaber things, and I have another random thing to add. The green lightsaber originally only existed in the Return of the Jedi because you would not be able to see the blue against the Tatooine sky. So they changed it green. But then also, Qui-gon had a green saber, whereas Obi-Wan had a blue. And Obi-Wan kept the blue saber. But in the next movie, Anakin has a green saber. And some theorize that green saber represented that it was like of a higher Jedi order or like a higher class, and that Anakin was already kind of showing that he thought he was better than Obi-Wan by getting.
I mean,
Yeah. So
that boy does get uppity.
my last random thing is the idea of machete order. Okay, and this is referring to what order do you watch the Star Wars films in? Some say you watch them in the original release orders. Some say you watch them as they were intended, 1 through 6, or now 1 through 9. Again, this machete order thing came out before the newest trilogy. But they said two obvious options. You watch in release order or episode order. They said the problem with episode order is that it ruins the biggest twist in movie history, which is Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's father.
Right.
And some people think that really doesn't matter since it's common knowledge. But if you have people who've never seen it and you show them that, and then there's videos out there watching Star Wars for the first time who had no idea, the reaction is
I don't know if I believe
priceless.
that. I don't know
That's
if I
like
believe
one
that.
of the most known things ever.
Yeah, I don't
There
know
are
if I
still
believe.
some people who have no
Well,
idea.
Erica never watched Star Wars, and so I think it was last summer or last year, we went through and okay, we're getting the main three. You've never seen it. And so there's that part of me that wanted to tell her, and I got really excited, but I was like, no, this is a big surprise or whatever. And then it happened. I was like, and she's like, everybody knows that.
Right.
Like,
Right. That's what I'm saying. It's the cultural zeitgeist.
There are some people who don't.
I don't believe that.
Okay,
They're lying.
if you say so.
Lies.
Trying to be hip.
Lies.
So they say neither order is really ideal. So the guy introduces machete order. He says, watch them in this order: 4, 5, 2, 3, 6. You may notice episode 1 is gone. And we'll get to that in a second. But he has them in that order because it.
I hate it.
It preserves.
I would not last watching that one.
It preserves the twist, and then you watch 2 and 3 as like a flashback before you get to the final conclusion. Now, again, before 7, 8, and 9. But why skip episode 1? He says, I'm not going to sit here and bag on how awful episode 1 is. I'm not even going to try to act like episode 2 is better or tell you that episode 1 ruined my childhood. The reason to skip episode 1 isn't that it's bad, it's that it's irrelevant.
Well, that's, yeah.
If you accept my suggestion that Star Wars: The Saga is really about Luke's journey and his decision to accept his hero's burden by saving not only the galaxy from the Empire, but his father from the dark side, then you'll find that everything that happens in Episode 1 is a distraction from that story. Every character established in Episode 1 is either killed or removed before it ends. Darth Maul, Qui-Gon, Chancellor Valorium. They might be unimportant, Newt Gunray or Watto, or established better in a later episode like Mace Windu and Darth Sidious. Does it ever matter that Palpatine had an apprentice before Count Dooku? No. Darth Maul is killed by the end of Episode 1 and never referenced again. Now, again, he has been,
right?
But still. You know, does it ever matter that Obi-Wan was being trained by Qui-Gon? Nope. Obi-Wan was well into training Anakin at the start of Episode 2. Qui-Gon's irrelevant. As much as we love him, he's irrelevant.
I do agree with him that I was watching this movie, and there were a few times while watching this movie where I honestly thought, what is the point? Mm-hmm. Like, there were so many things where I was just like, none of this matters.
Yeah.
I mean, we're showing essentially how Qui-Gon Jinn found Anakin Skywalker. Yeah.
So
that's it.
Here's what gets removed if you take Episode 1 out completely. No Jar Jar, basically. He has 5 lines in Episode 2 and 0 in Episode 3.
Bless.
No midichlorians.
Great.
No Jake Lloyd. No confusing Padme Queen switcheroo. Less confusing master-apprentice relationships. Darth Sidious is training Count Dooku. Obi-Wan's training Anakin. No other trainer-trainee relationship exists to confuse the backstory.
Okay.
And no Force,
babies. Jesus.
Yeah, no Force Jesus babies.
No Jesus Force. Force Jesus.
We simply don't know or care who Anakin's father is. And, yeah, so.
I feel like I understand that, and it's worth losing some of those, but to me, I'd much rather see young Anakin the way he is, where he's just a happy child.
Yeah, and that makes sense, too.
See the transformation versus by the time the second movie starts, he's already a snarky kid.
But
and here's the thing:
hot.
I am not standing this. I thought it was just an interesting thing that some people swear by. Hey, don't even watch Episode 1. Now, I disagree. I enjoyed Episode 1 much more than 2, but I get
it.
He has a point.
I definitely get it. He has a point. I feel like the fan in me rebels against that because it feels like you're a fair weather fan, where it's like if you accept how much you love something, then you have to accept when it's good and when it's bad.
Yes.
Like if I love Lord of the Rings, like I love Lord of the Rings, and I have to accept weird de-aged CGI Orlando Bloom as Legolas in The Hobbit, even though it literally haunts my nightmares.
Yes.
So here we are.
Cool. Last random thing I had is Pepsi released cans with different Episode 1 characters on. There was 24 in all,
do remember that.
And I collected them all.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Still got them?
No, they got thrown out. They were empty cans, by the way. I would drink the Pepsi and then delete the can. But I didn't clean it out. So I had to end up throwing them out because, that's not sanitary. But they had...
boys.
I know, boys. Ugh. They had Pepsi, Mountain Dew, Diet Pepsi, and caffeine-free Pepsi. So I had to drink... I literally searched for...
You had to drink so
Diet
much
Pepsi.
Soda.
But I had all 24 of them, which...
You literally could have just kept it sealed, and it would have been fine.
I could have, but as a kid, I wanted to drink soda. So,
I mean...
Anyway, what's your what moment? The moment where you geeked out the most in this movie?
I look back more as a child seeing it versus me seeing it now. And it was just the lightsaber fight for me. It was just seeing... That's what I knew about Star Wars and loved it from being a younger kid. So seeing it now, this is my Star Wars fight. So
yeah. Mine was the reveal of the double-sided lightsaber. It's like, oh, snap. It's about to get started, y'all.
I think as an adult, this movie honestly didn't have a what the what moment for me.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know. There's a couple moments for me, though. I was like I said earlier, which woman's which?
What?
There's that old man. He becomes the Emperor.
Who are you?
Meets a Jar Jar Binks. Okay. Who won the movie?
Dun, 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 dun.
I'm not going first this week. Kyle.
Eric has learned his lesson.
I have two different ones, but I'm going to stick with the one I wrote first. Is Senator Palpatine. My other one was Anakin. I wrote Anakin as my other one. Senator Palpatine is the one I'm going to go with because I wrote him first. I said that, or Darth Sidious, however you want to go with that. But I said...
our good pal Sheev.
Yeah, Sheev. I just said with everything else going on in this movie, it gets so busy. But as that's happening, he so smoothly slides in and gets everything in order the way he wants it. Slides right up the pole, turns around. He's like, okay, here's this kid. He's going to turn around and be, I'm going to keep my eye on him to train him. And I was listening to on Binge Mode. They explain a little bit deeper too about the Sith, where there's only 2 at all times.
Yes,
and it's because pretty much one's the master trains the younger one. The younger one wants to be
the master.
They're seeking power, so they kill each other constantly.
Yeah.
So he's already thinking about well, Darth Maul's gone now. This young kid that could potentially hold all the power never seen before. He's the one I'm going to choose. So in the end, he's secretly, by the end of the movie, he's got
everything he
little
wants.
snark on his face.
And young Skywalker, we'll watch your career with great interest. I'm like, I bet you will, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Ashby, who won the movie?
R2-D2 wins every
snap.
Star Wars movie.
Oh.
He's one of the few characters who's made it through every single movie. Outwit, outplay, outlast.
Wow, I even brought Survivor in. My love of Survivor's coming in here.
I'm glad that I went first because
I am too.
honestly, R2-D2 was always my favorite character growing up. Like him and Chewbacca were like hand in hand. So
I had 3 contenders here, but the first one was Senator Palpatine.
Makes sense.
Qui-Gon, in the sense that he had one movie and he killed it.
I wish
True.
he had been in there.
True.
But both, literally and figuratively. And then Obi-Wan, who comes out of this as on the Jedi Master, his new apprentice, whatever. But I agree, Senator Palpatine as someone who got everything he wanted in this movie, and the chess pieces were moved into place. Even to the end where Mace Windu and Yoda were talking about, there's always one, a apprentice and a master. Well, which one was destroyed? And then camera pans over to him.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not obvious. Okay.
Nothing to see here, folks. Move it along.
So, Ashby, I'm sorry. I do love me some R2-D2. But
True.
Palpatine, he ruled the galaxy for
Look,
6 movies and then
I
came back for a
can't
9th
win
movie.
every time, okay?
I don't know.
It's
You were
fine.
winning pretty often.
The
That's
fun
fine.
point of this is, does that mean that I win this time? So Eric technically
I had to
chose
break-
me as winner.
Yes,
so.
I did. I had to break the
Yes.
tie. So I'm still 0 for
That's right.
0 for 3 here.
That's right.
Okay. Confer on you the level of podcaster the council does, but agree on you taking this boy as your Padawan learner. I do not.
Hunter believed in him.
The chosen one the boy may be, nevertheless, grave danger I fear in his training.
Eric, I gave Hunter my word. I will train Kyle with or without the approval of the council if I must.
Hunter's defiance I sense in you. Need that you do not. Agree with you, the council does. Your apprentice, Whitley will be. And his first task, leading us off as we share 1 for each of the main Skywalker Saga films, 9 fun facts and observations from this film. Young Padawan Kyle, you get to go first.
Since I was so pumped on the lightsabers earlier, I'll throw this one out. This is the first movie we ever see the lightsabers activate and inactivate. Mm-hmm. Because in the olden times, they did not have the ability where they have CGI in this movie. So if they showed it in other movies, they had to use 2 different clips. Like one where they were just holding the handle and then one holding it with the light up blade in it and just kind of clip them together where it makes it work. Or they would do it off scene where you'd hear the sound of it off the scene, in the background. But this is one of the first times, especially as we talked about with Darth Maul, where you see it slowly come out on both sides, where they, and multiple times throughout the movie, where they're actually activating, and you get to see and experience that as well.
Cool. Number 2. So, Kyle, you mentioned that you had trouble with the whole Queen Padme switcheroo. You weren't the only one. When fully dressed and in makeup, Natalie Portman and Keira Knightley resembled each other so much that Keira Knightley's mother, who visited the set, had trouble identifying her own daughter.
What a bad mother.
Yeah, terrible. Ashby, number 3.
I mean, it doesn't make her a bad mother.
I'm totally kidding.
Honestly, there have been moments in my life where I've watched Keira Knightley or Natalie Portman movies, and for a second, my brain I'm like, wait a second, is that? And then I'll have to go to IMDb just to make sure that I'm right because I'm doubting my own, ability to suss it out. Anyway, so I put, Hunter kind of mentioned this in his summary, but I remember I was watching it and he calls him Willow because he did play Willow, but also Professor Flickwit. And I think it's Rhys Davies. Is that who plays Professor Flickwit in the Harry Potter movies? He also plays Willow, and you see him really quickly in a flash in the pod racing scene. I'm trying to look it up really quick.
He's
Warwick Davis?
Warwick Davis.
Warwick Davis, who also took over R2-D2 after Kenny Baker passed away, and he was the Ewok in Return of the Jedi as well.
And I think in this movie too, he plays. It's like what's his name? The guy that Han shot first. Oh,
young Greedo.
yes. There's I don't think it's Greedo, but like the same species.
Yeah.
You see him walking around. He's also that character.
There's a deleted scene where he's actually named Greedo, and he's picking on Anakin.
Yes, Warwick Davis. Sorry, I could
Warwick
not
Davis.
remember his
Warwick
name.
Davis, yes. That's cool.
Anyway.
Number 4, Kyle.
Let me go back. Michael Jackson wanted to be Jar Jar Binks in this movie. And he was full blown wanted to be Jar Jar Binks in this movie. He envisioned playing.
Misa Jar Jar Binks, woohoo!
It says he envisioned portraying the character in all-out prosthetics and makeup, but Lucas wanted Jar Jar as a CGI creation, and it didn't work out.
Side note, another one of our formidable high school memories. Every year they have something for the Johnson County Ed Foundation, a little spelling bee, where they have staff teams, and there's also high school teams that compete to raise money. And I was chosen to be on the senior team my senior year. And we decided to come as people from like the 80s. And as the only guy in this group of spellers, a 4-person team, I came as Michael Jackson.
Well, now you know what you'd be for Halloween.
With my single glove and my little hat.
Michael Jackson / Jar Jar Binks.
Yep.
Love to see it. First cosplay ever.
I'm sure it's not the first. I'm sure it's not the
So many things I could say, but I won't say any of them.
on the air.
Just keep me safe.
Number 5. According to Star Wars canon, Obi-Wan's hanging braid is a Jedi tradition common to all Padawan learners. When his master feels that he has reached proper maturity, he cuts the braid with his lightsaber, signifying that the student is now a full Jedi Knight. just leave that there. That look, I was hoping to get that look. Ashley, you have number 6.
There's
So many things.
nothing to see
We got to
there,
get to the end of this episode.
metaphorically or otherwise.
Otherwise.
If you would like to...
Family show. Family show.
If you would like to waste 10 minutes of your life, you can go to YouTube and search what is the most comfy Jedi council seat and watch a 10-minute video of which council seat which designed council seat, because each member has their own sort of design, which one would be the comfiest.
There you go.
Leave you that little Easter egg.
All right.
Have fun.
Number 7, Kyle.
I feel like there's so many that need to be said, but 2 of them are kind of obvious. So
Yep.
I'm going to wait till the end, and if not, I'll speed round them real fast. But
Speed round now.
well, okay. Well, I don't want to steal anybody's. But,
It's okay. I got 25 to choose from.
Okay,
so.
great. E.T. makes an appearance in this movie. This
Yes.
is the first hidden thing I ever saw in any movie, where all of a sudden or at least
There's like
his
3 of them, his species.
Sogyans, where in a bottom corner during the big Senate meeting, they're there cheering on. There's also, let's see. It said Ewan McGregor would frequently make lightsaber noises during his fight scenes, and this was noted during production and
people, when
edited for the
you're
final
kids and you're playing, you make the sounds. Ewan McGregor did the same thing as an actor.
film. They had to edit them out.
Vroom, vroom, vroom.
We literally have made multiple pew pew sounds tonight, so it's obvious that would be hard to do.
We would do well in the Lego movie universe.
Yes.
Pew pew.
But my big one for that is to make the environments in this film, sets were only built as high as the actors' heads reached. The space above their heads was filled in with computer graphics in order to save money. Given that, Liam Neeson was much taller than the rest of the cast, so his height ended up costing the crew an extra $150,000 in construction.
He had a particular set of skills.
He did.
A lot of skills that he acquired over a long period of time.
That hair.
If you
that
return
half up,
Padme
half
now, that'll be the end of it.
Beautiful.
I will find you and I will kill you. Okay, number 8.
Like Jesus. What?
Moving on, number 8. So Watto, the trade dealer who likes to bet and own people, he rolled this cube to see which person would be up for the bet, Anakin or Shmi Skywalker. And according to the script, the chance cube that Watto rolled with Qui-Gon was fixed to land on red. That's why he was so mad that Qui-Gon tampered with it to land on blue. So either way, I know Hunter mentioned in his synopsis that Qui-Gon cheated at this chance
Right.
game.
But he was cheating a cheater.
He was cheating a cheater, and I wonder if Qui-Gon knew that.
Well, he had to. If he
had
knew
to.
that it was a dice that was only made to land on red.
Yeah. So I thought that was super interesting. Number 9, Ashby.
So Jake Matthew Lloyd played young Anakin, and he's sort of had a series of unfortunate events in his life, arguably like many child stars. And in January of this year, his family issued a statement saying that he had moved closer to his family recently so that he could be supported as he sought care for paranoid schizophrenia. So I thought that was kind of interesting because I thought, well, who played young Anakin? And so I went and looked it up, and he looked kind of familiar. He had done some more movies as a kid. And then I had read a little blurb that as recently as this year that, he had been having some issues. And so he and his family are working through, taking care of his mental health. So good vibes to him in the universe. But I thought that was really interesting because I had the thought as I was watching it, like, whatever happened to this kid? So
Yeah, it's really sad, especially like random subject. But so I was watching Tom and Huck, the Disney movie, Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
Yep.
And I thought, what happened to Brad Renfro? And he passed away 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was just, a child actor who was very troubled. And,
Right.
It's just really sad how often that seems to happen.
Right.
Well, I looked it up too about him as well, at least Jake Lloyd, and they were talking about how he retired pretty much because of this role. Because
Right.
he went back to school and kids made fun of him and made lightsaber noises.
Like you and McGregor. Zoom, zoom.
Yes.
Right.
But anytime he walked by in that, and then his performance was given, a bunch of people talked crap about him.
Yeah, but look what happened to Hayden Christensen. Like, people were so mean to him.
Yeah.
And he
I
did a
know.
great job.
He did a pretty good job, yeah.
Ugh. People are the worst.
People are the
honestly.
worst. Star Wars fandoms, like really hardcore Star Wars fan bases, are generally the worst.
Yeah.
You know
So.
who somebody that's the worst is? Somebody that wrote this next line out. It makes me have to say
You don't have to say it.
You can't say Misa no Karen without using an accent.
Well,
Yeah.
then don't.
Misa no Karen about the Naboo. The Naboo.
I was just trying to find a good line to
Think they're
incorporate
so
our
smart.
listeners.
Somebody think they're so smarty. They don't think their brains. They think their brains so big, along that of our listeners, whose brains are big, but they don't think they are so smarty.
Question mark. Question mark.
Question mark. Either way, here's our social media shout out.
I'm gonna let you write the script next time.
No, I'm not good at that.
I know.
I'm just saying. It's not a bad line. It's just very cryptic.
I have given you some bad lines tonight, and I apologize.
It's okay. I don't mind.
First you dunk on Hunter, then you dunk on our listeners.
It's
a little
all
bit.
about your acting performance.
Yes.
You do your best with what
That's
you're
right.
given.
Yes, this is why you were trained without the approval of the council.
That's true.
Which right now is apparently me and Rickie and Scooby.
Right. And Hunter and I are Sith Lords?
Yes.
Yes. So
Cool.
we know where
I don't know. Hunter would be
Cool.
Hunter would be Qui-Gon. You would be Obi-Wan in this scenario.
I'm the Sith.
I'm Yoda. Yeah, you're the Sith. Yeah.
Does that mean Hunter has to cut my hair with a lightsaber? Is
Oh,
that what's happening?
Let's not do that. Social media shout outs. Let's get to it. I've got one too.
Okay. Facebook, we've got the opinion of overall movie, what you thought. Hunter actually commented on this as well. So Star Wars was everywhere, and I collected everything I could with Episode 1 on it, and it was such a cool movie experience for a 13-year-old me. The actors that played Jar Jar Binks and Anakin Skywalker didn't deserve the toxic energy from that fandom, or from the fandom. Ahmed Best, who played Jar Jar, tried to commit suicide, and at one point, Jake Lloyd is now a felon and never acted again. I just think back on all of the excitement for this movie and how it wasn't that bad, and how it serves as the true origin story for the fandom menace, toxic Star Wars fanboy culture.
Yes, that's a great way
Yes.
to put it. The fandom
Yes,
menace.
it really is
Yes.
toxic.
Chris Rode commented back and forth with that and said, Hunter Bat and I agree with this, not to mention the pod racing scene still keeps me on edge. I still think the worst episode prequel is 2 because there's way too much political mumbo jumbo. Hunter said 2 sucks, no debate there. Almost as bad as episode 9. And then Chris responded back and said, yeah, the latest.
He hates that movie.
Chris said the latest 3 had great potential, but they wanted to do too much with just 3 movies. It was like my 6-year-old wrote the concept. The weirdest thing is the seduction of Kylo on Ren. Jenny Vornum says, this came out just before my 13th birthday, and I went to go see it in the theater. People gave it such a hard time, but I love the backstory of Anakin Skywalker / Darth Vader and his journey. A few years later, I even had a poster in my room of the 3 Anakins from episode 1, 2, 3, and 4, 6, and wish Qui-Gon Jinn had more screen time. Such a great character, and young Obi-Wan Kenobi is quite different here. Much more reckless. Then there's Ben Kenobi we know and love from episode 4. Chris Rode commented individually and says, I love the fan fiction that Jar Jar is actually a Sith Lord.
Oh, there we go.
How in the heck does Liam Neeson die? Doesn't he have a set of particular skills?
Ignore that.
Chris was
That's right.
mostly just a bunch of questions. Says, what's going on with naked C-3PO? Last and not least, can we talk about the age difference between Anakin and Batman?
Maybe he should have been on this week's podcast.
Right.
The growth between Anakin or 1 and 2, or of Anakin between 1 and 2 is ridiculous. And then the love interest that starts seems a little creepy to me.
Yes.
Jordan Edgerton says, pod racing is in theater, man. Take my money right now. The age difference definitely doesn't hold up. A little gross. Darth Maul with the double blazed lightsaber. I mean, he killed Qui-Gon. I'll leave you with this hot take, though. Obi-Wan, MVP of the entire series. Ethan Brantley says, the timeless Liam
True.
Neeson and that other fish amphibious guy that no one liked. Laugh out loud.
Yes.
Amanda Gaddis said, I was introduced to Star Wars by my best friends, I think it's Lee and Amy. It could be Leah. but I
Leah.
imagine-
Yeah, it's Leah and Amy.
Look at that, Leah.
Look
Could
at
be
you
Leia.
coming
Who
in the
knows?
clutch.
Yeah.
I have fond memories of being excited to go to theaters for new Star Wars, midnight premieres, all of it. The prequels get a bad rap, but honestly, there was some great world building, and they gave us Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan, so I remember them fondly. Stephen Such says, them midichlorians, though.
For real.
For reals. I would argue the Obi-Wan is the MVP of the whole series, by the way, because, no excuse for not telling Luke that Darth Vader was his father. So what I told you was true from a certain point of view. It's like, no, you lied.
You lied. Like,
From a certain point of view, you definitely did not tell me the whole truth.
You 100% lied.
The only other question we asked today was, okay, what's your opinion on Jar Jar Binks? Because everybody seems to have one. Facebook John Wise said he was in the first one I ever saw with my older cousin, or first one I ever saw. It was the first Star Wars movie he ever saw. So my older cousin took me to watch it because he's a huge Star Wars fan. I loved him, but was told that I was silly. Or was told I was, yeah. And then on Instagram, Alicia Teagan said, I loved him. I mean, he was goofy, and as a kid, this was genius. I watched it to watch him. And Ressa Davadival, I'm sorry if I butchered your name. I'm sorry, it's just your name. But thought he was funny, and I was 25 when the time The Phantom Menace came out.
Oh, nice. I had a Facebook message this afternoon
Okay.
from Chris Batten, who is the softball coach at North Johnson High School. He said, didn't know you were a Star Wars guy. And I was like, well, I'm many, many things. And he's like, well, I saw the original at 6 years old multiple times, been hooked all my life. Spent the quarantine time building my childhood toy collection to a decent amassing of vintage Star Wars toys. And he sent some pictures of some of his Star Wars stuff. Said he had his childhood collection stored in the closet, got it out, and started eBaying as a new hobby. So,
Nice.
And he can't wait to hear us on Monday. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
So I found really quick, because I know sometimes we do like updates on things. I found a article that was literally posted today, which I think was funny, from the Mary Sue, which is a female-centric like girls geek news website. And it says, Hayden Christensen rumored to be in the Obi-Wan TV series, ? My teenage heart is a flutter. It says, Hayden...
Is that you or the...
I wrote this, yeah. I'm just kidding.
promoting another medium you're on
No,
here.
I write for the Mary Sue. No, I'm just kidding. Rachel Leishman wrote this. It says, Hayden Christensen coming back to Star Wars has been a long-standing rumor that has hurt me personally, mainly because I was a straight teenage girl when Star Wars Revenge of the Sith came out, so I had pictures of Hayden Christensen all over my walls, and I've been hoping to see him once more in the Star Wars franchise ever since. We got a taste of him in The Rise of Skywalker in the scene where Rey is fighting Palpatine and has the power of the Jedi behind her back, and they all speak to her, and he's one of those figures. And obviously we also know that he was superimposed into the ending of Return of the Jedi, which I thought was really cool. Some people didn't like, but I thought it really tied them in as much as they could.
Yes.
And then it says, but now, according to LRM Online, it is a top shelf rumor that Hayden Christensen is working on a deal to come back to the franchise in Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan Kenobi Disney Plus series. Since that series is supposedly set between the prequel movies and the original Star Wars trilogy, it would mean that Hayden Christensen would be Darth Vader, right?
Not necessarily.
Theories are floating that Obi-Wan would see Anakin as some sort of dream force ghost, and that it isn't just a cameo either. He's rumored to be considering as a series regular. While this is all speculative, it's interesting because so many of us are invested in these two characters because of the prequels. With the Clone Wars animated series also telling more of their story together, this could be some sort of flashback tactic to tell us part of that story while still giving us a glimpse into the time that Obi-Wan spent on Tatooine. So it's a rumor still, but it's interesting to think that maybe, Hayden Christensen, I feel like, was really like vilified unnecessarily. And, we'll talk about that, I'm sure, when we cover the next 2 movies. But I think that, the fandom Menace has had time to cool their jets in the last decade and has kind of seen how unfairly that they treated him. I think he did a great job as Anakin Skywalker, and I would love, if there were 2 characters I would love to see more of, it would be him and Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi. So that news excites me if it's true.
100%. And I'll say this. I thought he did fantastic in Revenge of the Sith, and I felt like he didn't really have a lot to work with in Attack of the Clones because that was just a bad writing job by George Lucas.
Right.
I feel like
when you're talking about how much you hate sand, no one talks like that.
Right.
Except for me when I'm mocking it. It gets everywhere.
For me, I see how they've done with The Mandalorian and how great of a show they did and how more serious it kind of. It has its funny moments, but like compared to the movies, it's has a more of an adult tone, I guess it would be. And so if they could do something like that with Obi-Wan and them, I feel like it could be a really good success. And I feel like they probably will since they've already seen The Mandalorian and what they've done with that.
Yeah.
To be less, funny characters. And I will say, above all, this whole movie in general, by doing research on it, I feel like there is, especially now in 2020. The most common thing I see is people saying it doesn't deserve the rap that it got.
Right.
Versus a very harsh
Right.
time period at one point that it was just crapped on completely, where it's even just inside knowledge. Like you mentioned Star Wars and the prequels, are horrible. Like,
Right.
And I think, like
the early days of the internet.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's the inside joke.
Luckily, the internet got better as time went on.
Oh, wait. But
What?
anyway.
What?
All right, friends. Big thank you to Rickie, Liles, and Tim Hutchison for all of their contributions to today's episode. We hope that you enjoyed this discussion as much as we did, and that you're as pumped for the rest of this journey into Star Wars films and other pop culture entities as we are. Next week, Ashby's on vacation.
That's right.
Boo.
Deuces.
She promised she would come back.
We'll see.
And
Maybe.
We'll see.
I might have some kind of like epiphany while I'm on vacation that I'm
Yeah. But
Forget it.
not meant to be here.
But we are going to get Chris Rode on the phone.
Chris Rhodes coming.
He's coming on the phone,
Through the phone.
and he will join us as we discuss our favorite multiplayer / sleepover video games.
Maybe it'll be like American Idol. Vote for America's favorite.
Maybe.
Me or Chris.
No, we can't do that.
This world isn't wide enough for both Chris and I.
Well, this room isn't wide enough for much of anything, but we'll make it work.
Man.
Next week, let Ashby know how much she's missed, but also tell Chris what a good job he's going to end up doing because he's going to do a good job.
And let us know what are some of your favorite video games from your childhood.
Oh yeah, that too. Yeah, we're talking about that next week.
Right.
Yeah.
Let us know what your favorites are.
Exactly. So until next time.
Stay as cool as the other side of the pillow.
Hang on, I had another line that I didn't put in y'all's script.
Oh, you should have wrote it in.
Well, no. This is my.
I
wrote this.
We don't allow that.
See, he doesn't like that we're stealing his stuff.
I don't.
So he's just taking it out of the script. Okay, I see how it is.
Now that's podcasting. Stay as cool as the other side of the pillow, and we'll see you next week on the What the What Show.
Bye.
Why are you still hurt?